We give our first impressions of the all-new Genesis GV80 SUV. Volkswagen reveals its latest compact SUV, the Volkswagen Taos. And we take audience questions, including, can you buy a car directly from the manufacturer? And what you should consider with a car that's been sitting for a long time during the pandemic, but you need to take it on a long road trip. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, and welcome to Talking Cars. I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
I'm Jake Fisher.
I'm Gabe Shenhar.
So earlier this week, the latest in the fall reveals was that Volkswagen revealed the subcompact SUV, the Volkswagen Taos, named after the cool outdoorsy city in New Mexico that I would like to visit one day. Again, subcompact SUV. Scott Keogh, the president and CEO of Volkswagen America, kind of indicated that dealers were clamoring for this entry. Lots of standard safety, automatic emergency braking, forward collision warning, blind spot warning, lane keeping assist, adaptive cruise control with stop and go feature, high beam control, light assist, adaptive front lighting on every Taos. So that's a great thing. Gabe, the question is, on the heels of maybe the ID4 launch only a few weeks ago, how does this internal combustion engine Taos fit in for Volkswagen?
Yeah, so the ID4 is, of course, their electric vehicle. And for if you remember Dieselgate from 5 years ago, Volkswagen's been on a PR campaign to clean their act and come up with electric vehicles, with electric charging infrastructure and whatnot. But as we all know, EVs are not yet for everyone, and you have to kind of get the bread and butter right to be able to finance that. So it's pretty much a no-brainer for VW to offer a sub-Tiguan SUV. As customers are flocking away from sedans, and now that Volkswagen doesn't have a Golf or a Jetta wagon, and also note that the 8th generation of the Golf is only going to be available in the US as a GTI, so no Golf and less Jetta sales, then VW needs something in the mid-20s to be affordable and appeal to younger buyers that think that the Tiguan might be too large or too expensive. So the Taos is basically a shortened Tiguan, and VW has offers elsewhere in the world other derivatives of the Tiguan under the brands of Seat and Skoda. So it's pretty easy for VW to bring a car like that here. So unlike the Tiguan, it's not going to have a 2-liter engine. It's going to have a 1.5-liter engine, slightly larger than the one in the Jetta. Front-wheel drive versions get a regular 8-speed automatic transmission. All-wheel drive versions get dual-clutch 7-speed automatic. And the pricing is going to probably start about $22,000 and top out in the low 30s. And it falls on the larger side of the entry SUVs. So it's not as tiny as a Hyundai Kona or a Mazda CX-3, but it's more like the size of a Subaru Crosstrek or a Nissan Rogue Sport.
So I was thinking, Jake, maybe it's something you can speak to. Are we at a point where, again, the ID4 and the Taos would compete against one another, or is it a whole different shopper?
I think it's kind of interesting what's going on. I mean, obviously there's a lot of news about electric cars. We see a lot of new ones in the market, not just the ID4. I mean, we've heard from California who's talking about, fully electric in about 15 years. So there's a lot of things going on there. But in the meantime, they have to make some money in order to finance all that electric fuel infrastructure and the electric cars. And this is right where, square in the market. I mean, there's a lot of talk about, we used to talk about running out of gasoline. And now, I think we're more in danger of running out of cities in New Mexico to name SUVs. We got the Santa Fe and, I'm waiting for the Nissan Albuquerque, maybe that's next. There's a lot of, this is a lucrative market. This is, and not to put a bad spin on it. I mean, this is a market that makes sense. People want SUVs. You get a brand new vehicle with all the safety gear at this size with that type of engine. You're probably going to get very good fuel economy too. I think you're probably going to wind up with, car-like fuel economy, which is quite excellent compared to where we used to be with SUVs. So it makes sense for the market. A lot of people are going to like a vehicle like this, and it's not going to be that, it's not going to be a gas guzzler. There's no question.
Right.
At that size.
We will wait and see. Of course, we will be getting our own, but not available till the summer of 2021. It is a 2022 Volkswagen Taos, so we will buy it when it comes. So very cool. I kind of like the Tiguan, so we'll see how it fits. So moving on from the track, and speaking of SUVs, we have our first impressions of the Genesis GV80. This is a car we rented from Genesis and got our first impressions in. Essentially a 2-row SUV, but there is an optional 3rd row, a little larger. They describe it as exterior athletic elegance with interior white space. I always like the reveal language around these things. But 2 powertrains, 300 horsepower, 2.5 liter turbo 4, 8-speed automatic, rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and then a 375 horsepower, 3.5 liter V6 twin turbo, 8-speed auto, all-wheel drive only. Some of the things they made a big deal about are active noise cancellation, this fancy high-def 14.5-inch display with touchscreen that you can have everything from a crackling warm fireplace calm to all of your infotainment inside, LED headlights, lots of safety, standard forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking, with pedestrian detection, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic warning, and emergency braking, rear cross traffic emergency braking as well. Prices between $48,900 and $70,950 on sale right now. We will be getting our own. But Gabe, going to you first. Impressions of the GV80. It's got some pretty highly established competition.
Sure, it slots right into the heart of the luxury SUV market, where the Lexus RX dominates in terms of sales, and it also competes with established competitors like the Audi Q7, BMW X5, Acura MDX, Volvo XC90, as well as Lincoln Aviator and Cadillac XT6. So it's a pretty crowded market, and the sweet spot is about 60,000 plus price tag, and it lines up beautifully in terms of size and power. The base engine is a 4 turbo, then a V6 turbo as well. A 3rd row is optional. In terms of styling, of course, it's in the eye of the beholder, but it looks very special. It strikes you as something like, wow, I've never seen something like that before. And you see it turns some heads. So that's going to be quite a draw. Now, in terms of driving it, I'll just give you a brief nutshell here. It seems very impressive. I mean, it's taut and agile and quiet, and the powertrain is responsive, particularly in V6. And the interior is beautifully finished. The only thing is that the control layout, and that's too bad because previous Genesis were always stood out in the luxury market with easy controls. But here we couldn't figure out who's on first.
Yeah, no arguments. I mean, I think that's really it's what you'd expect. I mean, it's very luxurious. It's very quiet. It's very powerful. It's very competitive. So, no one's going to mistake this for a Hyundai Santa Fe or something like that. I mean, this is, it's got some presence, and it's really quite impressive.
Jake, does it have enough presence? This was something I was thinking about, that the Hyundai association with Genesis, prior Hyundai Genesis and now just Genesis, is it enough with all the others, the G80s, and to shirk kind of the Hyundai reputation or whatever bad feelings people may have said about, earlier Hyundais? Obviously, there's some great product out there from Hyundai as well. Is it enough to continue that trend?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, the same conversation comes up all the time. I mean, we go back to the 1990 and talk about Lexus and say, just a Camry with a different badge, and in some ways, some of those were, but look where Lexus is now. Lexus has just as much prestige, if not more, in some circles than the best German makes. So, I mean, I think certain people look. Somebody wants a BMW, they're going to buy a BMW. I mean, there's going to be no, discussion. But, not only, I think, are people willing to give this a try, but also I think there's something a little bit less guilty about it, because this is what Hyundai and Genesis are all trying to do. They're trying to give you your cake and, give it at a 20% discount, it's just a little bit not as, flaunting. I spent 80 grand on my BMW. Okay. Spent 60,000 for the same stuff. I got a good deal on it.
Yeah, definitely. Hyundai really loaded the deck on the GV80 and on the G80 sedan sibling, of course. But that's in a different podcast, of course.
Another day.
Anyway, but it's a process, and Hyundai takes the long view here. It's a long-term proposition, and they're working on it, and they're very methodical about doing it, and slowly but surely. I mean, if we meet again in 20, 30 years, let's see where Genesis is then.
Right.
I'm gonna call it 5 or 10 years because, or maybe even 2, because Gabe, you nailed it. Slowly, methodically. I mean, look, if Genesis just wanted to make a bunch of money quick, you know what they would have done? They would have had a Hyundai Santa Fe. They would have a different grill on it, called it a Genesis,
or a Palisade,
shoved it right out the door, or a Palisade. That's right. But if you go lower market, they could have gone and sold a lot of vehicles. But it's a little bit short-sighted. They're starting slow. They're starting with these big, luxurious, cars, and now this big, luxurious SUV. I think in a couple of years, we're going to go see that kind of mid-size or smaller SUV where really the volumes are, and I think they're going to wind up selling a lot of vehicles.
They're definitely aiming high.
Yeah.
And I agree with both of you. I did find it special. I felt like you got in and said, even if you went to $71,000, I got something here. The powertrains, I was very impressed. We actually had both powertrains that we rented from Genesis, and I was thoroughly impressed. Most people, I think, are going to be quite happy with the 4. It has great sound, but they'll be really impressed with the 3.5 liter V6.
The one thing that kills me, though, is the gimmicks. I mean, why on expensive cars do we have to throw in the gimmicks? So what was it? The crackling fireplace. There's another mode where it's like a spring rain or something. It makes it sound like the car's leaking. I mean, why? Why do we have to have the gimmicks with everything?
I don't know, Jake. I kind of like the idea of a winter road trip with the crackling fireplace, maybe some holiday music on top of it. It's a whole atmosphere there in the car. We may be missing out.
I don't know.
Just in case the infotainment system is not distracting enough.
Yeah. Put your crackling fireplace on. So anyway. So obviously on sale now, right, Gabe? You can get one.
November.
Probably. Pretty soon. Yeah. We will be getting ours, running all the numbers, but something to watch, the Genesis GV80. For those that don't know, CR is a nonprofit, and we're able to do all of the work we do, including anonymously buying our test cars and producing this show through memberships to our website and magazine, as well as through donations. What the Talking Cars donation program will do is allow loyal Talking Cars fans to show support for the podcast, assist in supporting the costs of producing the podcast, as well as support all the work CR does to keep consumers safe. You'll be able to contribute either as a one-time donation or on a monthly basis. Even $5 a month really helps. Go to cr.org/give talking cars to find out more. In any event, we'll keep delivering talking cars each and every week. Again, go to cr.org/givetalkingcars to find out more. So moving on to your questions, audience questions. As always, keep them coming. Written questions, 30-second video clips, talkingcars@icloud.com. The first question is from Prakash in California. My question may sound ridiculous. No ridiculous questions, Prakash. But is there any way I can skip the hassle at the dealership and order a new 2020 Toyota Highlander directly from the manufacturer in the United States? Why can't car manufacturers provide products directly to the end user? Gabe, as our main shopper buyer, what is the answer for Prakash?
So the short answer is no, you can't buy directly from Toyota. The only car company that works that way is Tesla, where you buy directly from the manufacturer and skipping a dealer. So, I mean, that, of course, it's a double-edged sword here. With the dealer, of course, you have a middleman, someone else is taking their cut. But you can also view it as having an advantage because you have several dealers competing on you as a customer, and you have the ability to negotiate a lower price. Whereas with a Tesla, the price is the price. That's it. No negotiation. So, and dealers are, as a group, are very powerful. And in terms of state legislature, there are all kinds of things that just don't allow selling directly to a customer. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, that's the way it is. That's the reality. So for now, at least, you still have to go to a Toyota dealer to buy your Highlander.
I mean, there's definitely, as Gabe says, there's pluses and minuses of this. I mean, personally, I like the whole idea of the direct-to-consumer thing. I think the market has spoken. I mean, people like, not negotiating and buying from Amazon and getting their car, maybe having it delivered right to you without dealing with the negotiation and trying to do all that stuff. But I think the one thing that, I think we shouldn't forget about is the dealership. Having dealerships all over the place is useful because they could repair your car or help you out. I mean, I think about I bike a lot and I've bought bicycles, and it's interesting when the bicycle industry, it's very similar. Most bicycle manufacturers do not sell direct. And the reason they do that is because they realize very quickly it would put all of the bike shops out of business. If I could go buy my, Specialized or Trek directly and get it delivered to me, which is pretty easy in a box. If I need service, these guys are going to go out of business, and it's nice having that. So, Tesla is kind of, they're zigging when everyone else is zagging, but people very quickly realize that, okay, now my car needs repair and they're waiting for parts, or you got to get it, swapped out and the car is gone for a while. It does create some problems. Now, of course, Tesla doesn't have as much service that's needed, right? You don't have to change the oil and all those things. But that is something to consider.
Yeah. And I was conscious, in Prakash's, he knows exactly what he wants. He wants a 2020 Toyota Highlander. But what if you don't know what you want? So for me, the dealer is like a mall. You can go and test drive and look and see, narrow your choices down. It would be nice to have some hybrid. If you know exactly what you want, you can buy direct, even through the dealer. It's obviously the negotiating part that's the pain point, because I think, to your point, Jake, the service from a safety perspective, what's the avenue for recalls? We need the dealers to route, important safety repairs through. So I do think there's a balance of, for a dealer to kind of catch on to that. We've talked about the no haggle price. Eliminating is definitely an opportunity, I think, in this country.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's that showroom experience, right? You lose the showroom experience, and there's other models too. Forget about bicycles for a second, but it's like, if you buy your electronics from Amazon, you don't get to try it out first. You go to Best Buy, you get, let me see. Okay, now I could kind of use it in my hand or whatever. If everything goes direct, all these Best Buys, they're going to close down, and all you're going to have is the showroom that's on this virtual experience. And that's a really hard way to shop for a car.
Absolutely. If you don't know, and you can go dealer to dealer. So great question. Right. Maybe someday, Prakash. Our next question comes from Tom in New Hampshire, a neighbor. I own a 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland with 90,000 miles. I like driving it, but I know the reliability on the Grand Cherokee is pretty poor in your surveys. Personally, I've struggled with suspension alignment, radiator replacement at 60,000 miles, and a couple of other issues. Does your reliability data suggest that you can sort out a few big issues and have this be a reasonably reliable vehicle after that? Or, given the age and mileage, am I just waiting for major repairs to start sneaking up on me? Jake Fisher, having the best handle on reliability, I think, among the three of us. What is your advice for Tom?
Well, the good news here is that the used car market is quite hot, and selling a SUV is a good time to do that. So I would recommend doing that. Our data shows that no, you're not going to fix all the problems. It's going to get better. It's just going to get worse. Bad cars tend to get worse, and those parts that you're replacing, those could go bad too. And sometimes they could go bad faster than the original ones. So no, there's no change. It's just going to keep on getting worse from here. So time for a new one.
Time for a new one, Tom. Moving on to Angelo from Texas. I'm buying my uncle's 2016 Toyota Highlander Limited V6 that has been garaged at his second home in Florida since February. Ooh, long time. Not alone. It has 8,000 miles and has not been started since the pandemic began in early March. What should I do to get it ready for the long road trip to Texas? Would you have any hesitation regarding this purchase? Jake. What for Angelo?
Well, it sounds like a good vehicle, but you're absolutely right. I mean, cars hate to sit for a variety of reasons. So first of all, it may need a jump start. The battery could be dead for sitting that long. I would head over there, getting ready to have to jump start it, maybe with a battery pack of some sort. Check the tires, make sure that they're filled to where they need to. And I would take it to a dealer. I would have them do an inspection on it to make sure everything is moving like it should. I mean, even something like brakes. I mean, after sitting for a while, you could have some issues. It may not be a big deal, but have someone look at it. After that, you're all set. You could take that trip.
Yeah, it's a long way to go. And we've said, if Florida is hot, look at the tires too. Tires lose air even just sitting. So all of that. And congratulations. At least it's a good, reliable vehicle. I was thinking that. So a good choice. Our last question comes from Brian. We hear about maintenance costs for pure electrics, but how do maintenance costs for plug-in hybrids compare to gas-only vehicles? Is it halfway in between gas and electric, or is it higher since it involves keeping up two motors? Gabe, we recently did some work in this area. What do you got for Brian?
Exactly. So plug-in hybrids are going to fall somewhere between the pure electrics and hybrids, although closer to the pure electrics. Yeah, you're running, you have an electric motor and you have an internal combustion engine, but the internal combustion engine is going to not work as hard as it does in a pure internal combustion engine because of the augmented power by the electric drive. So you're going to need, you can extend your oil change intervals, for instance, and but following, of course, all the manufacturer's specs and recommendations. But our data shows that it's going to be closer to an electric vehicle.
Yeah, and those were some real data, right, Jake, from our owners of what they were actually paying in maintenance costs.
Yeah. So when we do our surveys and we ask, people about their reliability and their satisfaction and other things, we also do ask them about their maintenance and repair costs. And that's where that data comes from. So we certainly saw that electric vehicles, when it comes to repair and maintenance, quite a lot less, about half of what it is a normal gasoline vehicle. And as Gabe says, it's somewhere in the middle. Of course, it depends on what manufacturer it is. But I mean, there's certain things that we know, like for instance, brakes. If you have a hybrid, even just a hybrid, even not a plug-in hybrid, it's much easier on the brakes because you have that regeneration. You're using the generator basically to slow the vehicle down. So there's lots of reports of having 100,000 miles on the rear brake pads or something like that in a hybrid, which does absolutely save you some money.
Yeah, I found it neat. There was a stat in the analysis that said a plug-in hybrid that is plugged in daily should use the engine 25 to 50% of the time, so that a plug-in hybrid with 200,000 miles is more like a internal combustion engine with 50 to 100,000 miles on. So it's a balance in there, and I'm sure it depends on how much you're using the electric portion as well. So that's a great question. Great question, Brian. So that will do it for this episode. I do want to give a quick shout out to my fan and her husband that I met in Manchester, Vermont over the weekend. We've all shared stories about meeting audience members all over the country. Someday when we can all travel again, we hope to see you again. In the meantime, keep your questions, 30-second video clips coming, talkingcars@icloud.com. Stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.